David Haye says people can't wrap their head around Joshua losing and they can't really understand it. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Former cruiserweight, heavyweight David Haye has done his rounds. He did an interview with Seconds Out. Link in the description where he talked about the Anthony Joshua RUIZ situation. He kind of plays manager and says if he was Joshua's manager, he would handle it a certain way and he'd be very hands-on. You know, as I would expect from a former fighter. You know, he manages fighters. He says, if I was his manager, if I was Joshua's manager, I would have been involved in his training. I would have been involved in his sparring and how he looked in sparring. It's hard to make a call on something when I don't really have all the facts. I don't know any of the details. I haven't seen any of the sparring. So if I was his manager and I had been involved in his training and training had gone good and he was sparring fantastically, he was in top shape, he wasn't sick, and this was the result and it happened the way it did, I'd say we need a few fights. We need to get you comfortable under pressure. So if everything had been like A1 and brilliant, he says, then I would say, okay, my fighter just needs more work. We got to tweak some things. He says, or regroup. If he had some issues beforehand and he was struggling, you know, he's basically talking about how the rumors suggest anxiety attack and Joey Dweco, these types of things. He says, regroup. If I had some issues beforehand and AJ was struggling, the sparring was great and he got sick or whatever, if it was a legitimate reason like that, then I'd say, let's do it again, because the only reason he lost was because of A, B, and C. Like if he broke his hand or whatever, then I go straight into the rematch. But what I do, Anthony Joshua knows 100 times more. What I do know, he knows in his mind what happened on that night. It's funny, new media, I said the same thing. You know, Anthony Joshua knows exactly what happened in camp. You know, despite if he knows why his dad was mad, they know everything. You know, and it's hard to fake that. He said he does know what happened on that night. He knows whether Andy Ruiz is better than him. If Anthony Joshua is better than Andy Ruiz, we'll know in the rematch. If Andy Ruiz is better at boxing than AJ, then Andy wins. At that moment, we don't know who the better boxer is. So, you know, he's kind of playing both sides of the fence and devil's advocate, saying, hey, you know, depending on if camp was stellar and then it was still that outcome, then I would probably try to give him more fights. But if there was like a decided reason why that particular camp went bad and then that was the result, then he's saying he would go straight after the rematch because they know it's just one thing that they, you know, he came in with a fractured hand or something. He says on paper, we do because we watch what happened. We know who's, you know, basically we know who's better. But everyone can't accept the fact that this guy, Andy Ruiz Jr., is better than Joshua. There has to be a reason. We'll find out everything we need to know in the rematch. The rematch happens. Joshua walks out and does what he does. He goes down and gets up. The referee stops the fight. Okay, we're back on track. We know what happened. You had a bad night. That's what happened. So I agree with really most of what David Haye's saying. He's basically saying we gonna find out, and I love it because you can lie to me, you can lie to the public, but you can't lie to yourself. The man in the mirror, the woman in the mirror, you got to live with that. So all the Joey Dweco and anxiety attacks and the dad was mad because of the chef, all these things that don't really sound like they're the full truth from Team Joshua. We will be able to find those things out in the rematch and also in the decision-making process as far as I'm concerned. Like they're talking about the fight will be in the UK Principality Stadium or Madison Square Garden. So if it doesn't happen at Madison Square Garden where it happened, where it was the event happened and the upset happened, then that lets me know that Joshua probably did have a panic attack because they're doing anything and everything possible to get it back in the UK. Even if it means paying more money to Andy Ruiz and perhaps losing money in the long run. They're just trying to get him back on track. So I feel what David Haye is saying. I think we're going to learn a lot in this particular rematch of if Andy Ruiz is just simply better and it's a bad style matchup. I really think the stylistic matchup is very bad. Joshua, I'm looking at it and I'm really being objective and I'm like, what is he going to do? Like he's already big. He looked in shape. You know, I mean, I can't tell. But from the physical, he looked it. He was flexing, doing pictures of him flexing and shit. So he looked the part, and he's Olympian, gold medalist. He was the undefeated guy versus RUIZ. Had a loss. RUIZ had a shorter camp than him. He had a sports psychologist. He's making more money. So, you know, money matters because it affords you the opportunity to have whatever type of camp you want. You know, if you're financial, you think guys like Canelo and AJ and Floyd Mayweather have struggle camps at this point of their careers, like where they're like, oh, we need to send someone to Whole Foods and stock up on food, you know, and they're like, oh, how are we gonna pay for that? Because they're waiting for per diem or something. Like, come on, these are the A-listers of boxing versus guys like Andy Ruiz. I don't know about now, but previously, you know, he wasn't active. He wasn't really active. So he has to probably manage his money and pay his house and live a bit more modest, at least before he beat Joshua. You get what I'm saying? So I don't really buy the Eddie Hearn, oh, the dad was mad at the place they were staying and he was mad at the chef, because we're talking about a multi-millionaire fighter. Why would where he's staying be an uncomfortable scenario? Every time he was posting videos, the place looked just fine. You know, it looked like he was staying in multiple places too. So I don't really buy what Eddie Hearn is saying, because it looked like he had like a low budget, like a lower budget place, like a just a quick place. And then I also seen him, it was somebody's birthday and they're at some much bigger and looked like nicer house or some shit, you know, and they were singing and there's a guy cooking. You want me to believe that the dad was mad over a chef, where Joshua has the authority to fire a chef and rehire another chef? It's Miami. I'm sure they got a ton of chefs. They can make all types of gluten-free, vegan, whatever you want, you know, Cuban food. So I don't really believe that, but I do believe what David Haye said. We're going to find out in the rematch. Let me know what you guys think happens. Is this just a bad night or a bad style matchup? Make sure you smash the like button. We working. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.